I was just pulling out my black card to pay for Madison Clark's tuition when she, who had always been so timid, suddenly became cold and aloof. A stream of comments scrolled rapidly before my eyes. The heroine's been reborn. Finally, she can make up for last life's regrets with her childhood sweetheart. If the supporting male lead hadn't secretly interfered last time, the main couple never would have missed their chance at a lifetime together. I looked up and met Madison's icy gaze. Her eyes inexplicably welled up as she looked toward her childhood sweetheart. Madison had been reborn at 18, without a penny to her name. Standing next to her, I could clearly feel a shift in her aura. It was an air of nobility that only comes from being surrounded by wealth for a long time, something you'd never find in a poor girl. She glanced at the black card in my hand with disgust, her voice frigid. "I'll figure out my own tuition. I don't need you using your money to trample on my dignity." With that, she walked right past me and wrapped her arms around Ryan Mitchell, who was glaring at me with open hostility. She held him with such force, as if he were a priceless treasure she had just recovered. "Ryan, I know now, the person I love most is you." A buzz went through the crowd, and the comments in front of me grew even more frantic. "OMG, Madison is so brave. The first thing she does after being reborn is confess to Ryan." Totally. She didn't waste a second. The supporting guy must be stunned. "Last time, the heroine reluctantly took your black card for her tuition and agreed to be with you. Now all your money is useless." I scratched my head, staring at the captions that had appeared out of nowhere, and began to understand the situation. I was the supporting male lead they were talking about, the villainous rich kid who forced the heroine to be with him. And before me was the reborn Madison. In the previous life, as a freshman in college, I fell for Madison at first sight. When I found out she couldn't afford tuition, I offered my black card to cover all her expenses and asked her to be my girlfriend. Madison held the card, torn for a long time, but eventually agreed, burying her feelings for her childhood sweetheart deep inside. She was convinced I had torn her and Ryan apart. She hated my arrogant, entitled attitude, and her own insecurity and sensitivity made her feel inferior in our relationship, as if she had no dignity at all. Yet she grew accustomed to the wealthy lifestyle and didn't want to lose her personal cash cow. Years after graduation, when news of Ryan's wedding broke, she could no longer contain her feelings. She decided to crash the wedding in a desperate act, but on the way, her car collided with a truck and she was killed instantly. Reborn, the first thing she did was declare the love she never could in her past life, to finally put her regrets to rest. I frowned. What the comments said about my spoiled personality sounded about right. But as they said, Madison took so much of my money, and after graduation, I even used my connections to help her start a company. So what if she had to be a little subservient to a guy like me? What's wrong with her doing what I told her to do? Isn't that how it's supposed to work? Did she really think she could have it both ways and just swallow my entire family fortune? A smirk played on my lips as I decisively handed the black card to a random girl walking by. "Madison, who said I was going to pay for your tuition? The person I meant to give this to was her." "Hey, beautiful, want to be my girlfriend?" The comments section exploded. "What's going on? Did I miss something? How did the black card end up with someone else? Hey girl, taking that card is pointless. The supporting guy only has eyes for Madison. He'll never be with anyone else in this life. It's a tactic. Playing hard to get. Interesting, but the heroine won't fall for it." Madison froze. Freshly reborn, her eyes filled with disbelief and confusion. It seemed she hadn't realized that this life script was already deviating from the last. But with her true love right in front of her, the lingering fear of death and the thrill of rebirth were still overwhelming her senses, leaving no room for other thoughts. I enthusiastically invited the pretty girl to dinner. The semester had just started, so I didn't really know anyone yet. As for Madison, I'd only overheard some classmates saying she still hadn't scraped together her tuition money. That's why I'd kindly offered the black card, planning to ask if she'd be my girlfriend. After all, she was exactly my type. Maybe I really did love her in the last life, but in this one, that love was snuffed out before it even had a chance to start. I'm the sole heir to the Harrison fortune, a rich kid who has never had to put up with anything. I have all the money in the world, so why would I waste my time on a lost cause? A relationship is a relationship, and this pretty girl holding my black card, she was my type too. I took her to a high-end restaurant and told the waiter, "Bring us one of every signature dish you have." The waiter scurried away, delighted. The restaurant doors swung open, drawing everyone's attention. The reborn Madison walked in, arm in arm with her beloved Ryan. In her past life, Madison had been thoroughly polished by money. From her dining etiquette to her posture, she was flawless, every bit the wealthy heiress. She kept glancing my way, her eyes filled with a disdain and annoyance she couldn't hide, as if she was convinced I was only here to hit on her and that I was with another girl purely to make her jealous. Madison casually ordered 7 or 8 signature dishes, then turned to her sweetheart with a look of deep affection. "Ryan, the food here is just okay. You can make do for now. When we have time, I'll take you to try the best air-flown seafood, and then we'll go to some luxury boutiques and get you the latest styles." Ryan was floored by the sudden promise, so happy he nearly fainted. He shot me a smug look and raised his voice. "Madison, since today is our first day together, I have a gift I've been preparing for a long time for you." His face was beaming with a look that was meant to show off. The comments said they were childhood sweethearts, just waiting until they got into the same university to make things official. When I pulled out my black card, Ryan was so angry he looked like he could chew nails, and the way he looked at me, you'd think I was the other man. But in the last life, when Madison agreed to be my girlfriend, she never mentioned him, did she? Ryan mysteriously produced a simple little box. Madison looked thrilled, and the comments went wild. "OMG, the main couple's first meeting after rebirth is so sweet. Things are moving so fast, I can barely keep up with them. What do you guys think is in the box?" I remember last time, Ethan gave the heroine a watch worth over $200,000. The main guy isn't as rich, but I'm sure his gift is just as thoughtful. The box rested in his palm, feeling weightless. Madison opened it with great anticipation. Inside was a small jar filled with hand-folded paper stars. Ryan blinked. "Madison, I spent all summer folding these, just waiting until we got into the same university so I could give them to you when I confessed. I wrote 'I love you' on every single piece of paper. So, do you like it?" The previously buzzing comment section fell silent. If I didn't know Madison had been reborn, I probably would have thought she'd love a gift like that. For an 18-year-old, a box of paper stars might have been a sweet and precious gesture, innocent and beautiful. But beneath her youthful exterior was the soul of a 24-year-old who was used to designer watches and luxury cars, who had received more expensive gifts than she could count. Just hours before her death, the Madison who crashed was driving one of the luxury cars from my garage. The feel of a soft leather steering wheel was a stark contrast to a crudely made wooden box. I smiled and pulled a watch out of my bag, something I'd picked up on a whim while passing a luxury watch shop earlier. Since this girl was now my girlfriend, I couldn't very well play favorites. I pushed the elegant box across the table to her. "Sophie, today is our first day together too. This is for you. See if you like it." The comments flared up again. "Wait, isn't that the watch he gave the heroine in the last life? How could he give it to someone else? He's definitely still playing hard to get, trying to get the heroine's attention. Trust me, he won't be able to keep this up for long." Sophie was still reeling from the shock of the black card when a second one hit her. Her hand trembled as she reached for the watch, but Madison's sharp voice cut through the air. "Don't touch it. That's clearly my..." She swallowed the rest of her sentence. I knew she wanted to say the watch was hers. The comments mentioned that in her past life, she'd worn that watch for 6 years. She loved it so much that every night, she would carefully take it off, polish it, and place it back in its box. But this life was different. Now that she had her beloved sweetheart by her side, she surely had no interest in such materialistic things. Ryan scowled and rolled his eyes at me. "You think money makes you so great? You reek of disgusting money. A thoughtless watch like that can't compare to the love I put into these stars." "Right, Madison." Madison snapped out of it and forced a smile. "Ryan's right." She tried to rally, and just as she was about to put some food on her sweetheart's plate, her phone rang. It was a cheap phone with a bad speaker, but from where I was sitting, I could clearly hear the cold voice on the other end. "Hello, Miss Clark, your mother's hospital bill is due." The color drained from Madison's face. The comments immediately started panicking. I almost forgot. The heroine's mom is seriously ill in the hospital, waiting for money to save her life. I remember last time, the supporting guy just dropped $100,000 at the hospital and the surgery went off without a hitch. No way. The main couple just had a sweet moment. The supporting guy isn't going to use her mom to blackmail her again, is he? Why can't this guy just leave them alone? Oh no, he's looking over at the heroine. He definitely thinks this is his chance to make a move. I remembered hearing some classmates mention that Madison's mother had been battling cancer for years, which had drained all their savings and left them deep in debt. I quickly turned to Sophie. No one in your family is sick, right? No. No. Madison stood up to leave for the hospital but was stopped by the waiter. Ma'am, you haven't paid your bill. A ripple of laughter went through the nearby tables. In her past life, backed by the Harrison family, she could walk into any high-end restaurant and the owner would greet her with a smile and show her to the best table. Clearly, she hadn't yet adjusted to her new reality. The waiter presented the bill. $180. That was less than what she used to spend on half a bottle of wine. Madison instinctively reached for her black card, and when her hand came up empty, a cold sweat broke out on her forehead. That's right, she was 18 again, younger, more innocent, and broke. Right now, she was penniless. She couldn't even come up with $80, let alone $180. The waiter stood there, smiling politely. Madison gritted her teeth and turned to Ryan. Ryan, can you cover this? I'll pay you back. Ryan immediately became wary. Madison, my monthly allowance is only $200. This meal is $180. How am I supposed to live for the rest of the month? Don't worry, I have ways to make money. What ways could you possibly have? You said it was your treat, so why am I the one paying? Ryan grumbled, clearly unwilling to pay. The happy couple, together for barely an hour, had hit their first romantic roadblock. I took out my card at the opportune moment and flagged down the waiter. Madison turned her head away in disgust, as if expecting me to start harassing her at any second. She clearly wanted nothing to do with an arrogant rich kid like me. Her voice was thick with revulsion. Ethan, I've told you so many times, can you please stay away from me? I hate how you won't leave me alone, and I'm sick of you getting between me and Ryan. Neither my mom nor I need your filthy money. I was amazed by Madison's audacity. Even if, as the comment said, I was madly in love with her in a past life, the fact is we've never been together in this one. A comment appeared right on cue. When Ethan heard Madison couldn't pay tuition, he just pulled out the black card. He hadn't even said a word about her being his girlfriend before she confessed to her sweetheart. Before that moment, we had never interacted. She was the one who hated her past life, but she was also the one who couldn't seem to let it go. A cold smirk touched my lips. I was just calling the waiter to pay my bill. Is there something wrong with you, Madison? You always seem to think I'm obsessed with you. Madison's face went pale. It finally dawned on her that right now, we were practically strangers. The 6 years of entanglement from her past life hadn't happened yet. The realization made her stumble back half a step. The comments grew frantic. What's happening? Why isn't he paying for her mom's treatment? Yeah, if he doesn't pay, how is the heroine supposed to come up with that astronomical amount of money? Her mom was the only person who comforted her during those 6 miserable years of her past life. Watching the comments scroll by, my expression soured. They called the 6 years I spent showering Madison with money a miserable life, an experience of unbearable humiliation for her. In the past life, after I paid to save Madison's mother, all I got in return was scheming from both of them. Madison, dear, you can't let a man walk all over you. Listen to your mother, you need to get control of the money. My daughter is so brilliant. She got into a great university. The Harrisons only have one son. Sooner or later, all that money will be ours. Madison swallowed her pride and nodded. Too bad for them, the vast Harrison fortune wasn't something an outsider could just get her hands on. All she could ever get was whatever little I let slip through my fingers. If she behaved, I'd give her something. If she didn't, she got nothing. A guy from a family like mine isn't stupid enough to just hand over his entire inheritance. Sophie couldn't hold back any longer. Madison, you're the one who keeps harassing Ethan. He hasn't paid you any attention, yet you act like you're some kind of victim. It's ridiculous. Madison's face darkened, her voice sharp with impatience. You, Davenport, who do you, a country bumpkin, think you are to talk to me like that? You have any idea who I am? Her voice was low, dripping with the condescending air of an heiress, a certain poise that only money can buy. In her past life, after she started her company, countless people had called her Miss Clark, and all that flattery had gone to her head. What Madison hadn't realized yet was that the clothes she was wearing were even cheaper than Sophie's. I raised an eyebrow. Madison has a point. Sophie gave me a wounded look. I looked her up and down. Her clothes were plain and cheap, she really did look like a country bumpkin. I frowned and waved a dismissive hand, channeling my inner tycoon. I wouldn't be caught dead in rags like that. Sophie, you're coming with me to the mall right now, and you're not leaving until you've spent at least $20,000 on clothes. Leaving the mall with several shopping bags, Sophie was still in a state of shock, unable to process what had just happened. I stroked her hair. My girlfriend, of course, has to wear the best. The comments were still buzzing about Madison's situation. She was completely overwhelmed by money problems, tuition, living expenses, her mother's medical bills. If her first love was her only regret in her past life, then in this one, after fixing that single regret, a dozen new ones had surfaced. On the way back to campus, I watched the comments with amusement. Heroine, don't go looking for him. You'll just get tangled up with him for years again. I want to see your sweet romance with the main guy. Poor heroine, she's gonna be forced back to his side again. Who can stand his chauvinism? Can't even being reborn free her from this villain's control? Following the stream of comments, I looked ahead, and sure enough, there was Madison standing in front of the dorm. She looked like she'd been waiting for a while. When she saw me, she gave a bleak smile, as if resigning herself to her fate. Ethan, I lose. I guess I can't escape you after all. So here's the deal, give me the black card and promise to tone down that temper of yours, and I'll agree to be your girlfriend. As she spoke, she had an air of defeat about her, as if she were making some great, humiliating concession that had taken all her resolve. Her dignity must be pretty valuable if she thinks it's worth my unlimited black card. I laughed mockingly. I've never seen a beggar with so much attitude. I couldn't resist reminding her. Excuse me, Madison, have we met? A faint smile played on Madison's lips. Ethan, nobody knows you better than I do. Do you really think playing these games will make me pay more attention to you? Now hurry up and give me the card. My mom is in the hospital, and she needs the money. Her tone was confident, certain I would give in to her. In our past life, we were together for 6 years. If I hadn't liked her, why would I have stuck around for so long? She'd seen me act crazy for love, seen my grand public gestures. As the one being pursued, she felt she had nothing to fear. Her mother's hospital bills couldn't wait any longer, and she had a mountain of debt to deal with. Sophie stepped decisively in front of me. When exactly did Ethan ever ask you to be his girlfriend? That last sentence hit Madison like a lightning bolt. She stood there stunned for a long moment before she suddenly remembered something. Right, after she was reborn, she had confessed to Ryan. As for me, I really hadn't said a single word about her being my girlfriend. All the drama from our past life hadn't happened yet in this one. But she quickly shook her head with a self-mocking smile. Those 6 years of entanglement were seared into her memory. How could she possibly believe I hadn't loved her? She sighed, her voice heavy with a weariness she couldn't hide. All right, Ethan. I admit confessing to Ryan made you unhappy, but I can't delay things with my mom any longer. Just give me the card, and we can forget this ever happened. Seeing Madison give in, the comments started to panic. The heroine finally got a second chance. How is she getting tangled up with him again? But without Ethan, she's just a poor student. She wouldn't even have the startup capital to launch a business. I looked at Madison, answering both her and the comments. If you don't have money, figure it out. If you're too proud to use your face, you've still got other assets, don't you? I seemed to have wounded her pride, because Madison disappeared for several days. I remember before she left that day, she said through gritted teeth, Ethan, you'll never realize how obnoxious your attitude is. As punishment, you can cool off by yourself. Don't expect to see me for the next month. Happiness had come so suddenly, it almost felt unreal. We were in the same department but different classes. On a campus this big, running into someone by chance was next to impossible. After Madison vanished, I started spending more time with Sophie. She would wait quietly for me outside my dorm every day to walk to class and even offered to run errands like getting my meals, until my roommate Derek fiercely intervened. "Mr. Harrison. Miss Davenport. You two just focus on being romantic. Please leave such menial tasks to your humble servant." Derek was sharp, so I usually just called him Derek. After he got into college, his family cut him off completely, demanding he earn money to buy his younger brother a house and a car. Stubborn Derek had shown up on campus alone with all his belongings stuffed into a cheap duffel bag. On the first day of school, I offered to pay him $20 a pop to run my errands. He was so thrilled, he hugged me and cried for what felt like an hour. I had already forgotten all about Madison. The comments kept giving me periodic updates on her status. For instance, she was borrowing money from everyone to cover her expenses, but other students didn't have much to lend, so it was just a drop in the bucket. Penniless, she had to rely on Ryan for every meal. The star-crossed lovers, once full of regret, were now starting to find friction in their relationship. To save money, Madison, who had never worked a day in her past life, actually started taking on part-time jobs. Just when I thought I'd never see Madison again, I ran into her while I was in the cafeteria with Sophie. I usually only came here on weekends, while Madison came on weekdays. We were like two parallel lines that never crossed. But here was Madison, who should have been off campus for the weekend, sitting right in the cafeteria. There was a subtle change in her. When she was first reborn, she had that air of nobility that comes from wealth, an effortless confidence in every gesture. Now all that was left was exhaustion and anxiety etched on her face. She was thinner, and her brow was constantly furrowed. As Sophie and I entered the cafeteria, we saw Ryan carrying a tray of food with a secretive air, his voice excited. "I managed to get the best dish in the cafeteria. Quick, try it." He then placed the food in front of Madison as if expecting praise. It was a $7 slop from the daily special, greasy and bland. I could clearly see the disgust on her face. The comments started up again. "How can the heroine even eat this stuff?" Yeah, in her past life, every meal was a gourmet feast. How can she eat this every day now? And her clothes. Her whole outfit costs like $50. In her past life, she only wore the latest designer brands. But everything the heroine had was given to her by the supporting guy. Without him, this is the life she would have had all along. This life is just her returning to her true starting point. After that comment, no one else had anything to say. In our past life, after Madison and I started dating, we never once ate in the school cafeteria. Every meal was at a fine dining restaurant, or I'd have my butler deliver fresh sashimi platters to campus. We went shopping at luxury boutiques every week, and Madison almost never wore the same outfit twice. She adapted to that lavish lifestyle with incredible speed and, over time, became extremely particular about what she ate and wore. Suddenly being thrown back into this kind of life, of course she found the food unpalatable and felt completely out of her element. After a long hesitation, Madison put down her fork and stammered to Ryan, "Ryan, I need to ask you for a favor." "What is it?" Can you lend me $20,000? Ryan choked on his food, his voice instinctively rising. "What did you say? You're asking me for $20,000? You live off my food. You still haven't paid me back the $180 for the dinner 2 weeks ago, and now you have the nerve to ask me for $20,000. Countless harsh stares fell upon Madison. He couldn't help but be taken aback. Ryan's family was in the same financial boat as Madison's. How was a student like him supposed to come up with $20,000? Ryan was still yelling. "Do you have any idea that my parents don't even make $10,000 a year? How can you have the audacity to ask me for money? You use my meal card every day and still complain that the food is terrible and not as good as air-flown seafood. You're broker than broke right now. Were you eating that seafood in your dreams?" Madison's face burned with shame, and she couldn't stop herself from lashing out. "I'm only in this situation because of you. I used to spend at least $100 on every meal. The cheapest wine I drank was over $1,000 a bottle. Everyone used to call me Miss Clark with respect." Ryan looked at her like she'd told a bad joke. Madison, have I not known you my whole life? You can't even afford your own tuition, and you're sitting here fantasizing about being some big-shot CEO living the high life. Are you delusional? Laughter erupted from the surrounding tables, jolting Madison out of her memories of a luxurious past life. She had been reborn for a month now and had chosen a completely different path. The comments started complaining again. What is this? I came here for a sweet campus romance, not to watch them fight every day. There's no sweet romance to see when you're broke. Madison irritably turned her head and suddenly spotted me. In an instant, her posture straightened, her frown smoothed out, and a confident smile reappeared on her face. Her eyes, when they met mine, held a flicker of hope. I admired my new watch as I casually strolled past Madison's table. I gave the cafeteria food a lazy, disgusted glance, then turned to Sophie. Let's go eat somewhere off campus. When Sophie nodded, I walked right past Madison without a second glance and headed for the exit. The confidence on Madison's face crumbled. After I was a little ways away, she actually abandoned Ryan and ran after me, shouting, "Ethan, why didn't you?" The rest of her sentence died in her throat when she saw the Porsche Cayenne parked outside. The luxury car was parked ostentatiously on the main path to the cafeteria, drawing envious stares from many students. Madison let out an amused sigh. So you were trying to surprise me. I don't like being so conspicuous, though. Don't do this again. I remembered that in her past life, Madison had been driving this very car to go see Ryan when she had her fatal accident. That's right. Last time, he gave her this car after graduation. I can't believe he's brought it out this early in this life. Our heroine belongs to the main guy. She'd never be swayed by a fancy car. Get ready for the epic takedown. Madison clearly adored this car. In her past life, she had driven it through the streets of New York countless times, turning heads everywhere she went. She reached out and pulled the car door open, only to be met by the angry glare of my chauffeur, Mr. Williams, from the driver's seat. This car belongs to Miss Davenport, a gift from the young master. It's not for just anyone to sit in. Madison's hand froze as if she'd been shocked. The heiress persona that had faded over the past month suddenly returned. Her voice was a low hiss. Mr. Williams, this car is mine. Have you forgotten? In her past life, this car was hers, but now. I let out a cold laugh, quickly opened the other door for Sophie, and we both got in. I slammed it shut. Madison snatched her hand back just in time to avoid having her fingers crushed. Through the window, I gave her a contemptuous once-over. Madison, you really need to work on your bad habit of coveting other people's property. I gave this car to my girlfriend. What does it have to do with you? In Madison's eyes, I was always the arrogant rich kid, so of course I had to speak with domineering and ruthless flair. The joy that had just bloomed in Madison was utterly crushed. Her terrified eyes darted to me as she whispered, "Isn't this car supposed to be for me? I drove it for 2 whole years in my past life." She'd been reborn for this long, and she was still stuck on her past life. The past life she so despised had now become an unattainable illusion, like a flower in a mirror or the moon's reflection in water. The comments were also dumbfounded. What's happening? It seems like he doesn't like the heroine at all anymore. The heroine was reborn for nothing. I wanted to see a sweet romance, but good grief, they've been together for 2 weeks and have already fought 16 times. And I wanted to see the heroine shut down his advances, but who knew she'd be the one getting shut down constantly? You all say Ethan won't leave Madison alone, but from where I'm sitting, it looks like she's the one harassing him. I tore my eyes away from the comments. I'm Ethan Harrison. I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Why would I ever chase after some worthless girl? Since she felt that her biggest regret was not ending up with her first love, then this new life was her chance to make that dream a reality. The car sped off. In the rearview mirror, I could see Ryan grabbing Madison by the collar and screaming at her, while she just stared blankly at our exhaust fumes, letting him yell. I looked away, pulled out my Switch, and started playing. Mr. Williams, I complained, driving this car onto campus is too much. A few more times and the dean's going to call me in for a talk. Mr. Williams nodded quickly. Understood. Next time, I'll wait for you at the main gate. By the way, sir, since you don't technically have a girlfriend at the moment, perhaps you consider the marriage alliance with the Davenport family. Sitting in a private booth at a bar, I eyed Sophie. On the way over, I'd impatiently dismissed the idea, saying I didn't want an arranged marriage with a stranger. Mr. Williams had looked surprised. But she's not a stranger, sir. You've been seeing Miss Davenport for some time now. As he said this, Sophie, huddled in the back seat, tried to shrink herself into a ball. For people in our circle, arranged marriages are a given. They're just business deals to bind two families together and mitigate risk. My phone still had a message from my dad, "You little punk. I'm relieved to see you're getting along so well with the Davenport girl. If she's a good fit, get engaged. If not, we'll move on to the next one, until you find someone you're happy with." At that moment, I really felt like a spoiled brat, casually picking out companions as I pleased, living a life of utter decadence. Sophie awkwardly explained, "Ethan, I just heard you were looking to date a poor student, so I dressed down a bit. But I hadn't even done anything. I just found you in the crowd when you suddenly shoved a black card at me and asked me to be your girlfriend. I just didn't expect things to happen so fast." She said she'd enrolled at Northwood University specifically to confess the feelings she'd had for me for years. She just never expected I'd beat her to the punch by making her my girlfriend first. The process was unconventional, but the result was the same. My voice was cold. "So you're this rich, and yet you've been letting me pay for everything with my black card?" She quickly said, "No. I never used that black card. You never told me the PIN when you gave it to me." I didn't give her the PIN. I awkwardly took the card back and slipped it into my wallet with a sheepish grin. The comments had already exploded, scrolling by in an impenetrable wall of text. How did the plot get so off track in this life? I remember this arranged marriage thing came up in the last life too, but didn't Ethan use having a girlfriend as an excuse to turn it down on the spot? A waiter carrying drinks pushed open the door to our booth, breaking the awkward silence. Our eyes met, and the drinks went spilling across the floor. She looked shocked at first, then her shock turned to embarrassed anger. "Ethan, what are you two doing here alone?" It was Madison, dressed in the bar's burgundy uniform vest, standing at the door. According to the comments, the part-time job she'd found was serving drinks at this bar. Madison's face was pale as she looked back and forth between us. She rushed forward and grabbed my wrist. "Why are you alone with her?" I shook her off. "She's my fiancée." "Who am I supposed to be with, you?" The word fiancé left Madison reeling. The dim lighting of the booth couldn't hide how pale her face had become. After a long moment, all the fight seemed to go out of her. She gave a bitter laugh. "Ethan, I know you're only with her to spite me. Even with a second chance, it seems I'm destined to be tangled up with you." She turned away, biting her lip. "You win. You really win. I'll do it. I'll be your girlfriend." "Hold on," I cut in. "Did I ask you a question? Because it sounds like you just shamelessly accepted an offer I never made." Madison closed her eyes, as if steeling herself. "Did you know I've been reborn? In my past life, you offered me a black card to be your girlfriend. You gave my mom $100,000 for her treatment, and you even gave me that Porsche Cayenne as a gift. We were together for 6 years. You were arrogant and spoiled, but I constantly put up with you. And even though I spent that life pining for Ryan, being reborn has made me realize my true feelings. I still love you." Madison probably didn't even notice the nostalgia that crept into her own voice. The comments started joking around again. "Wow, the heroine really cleaned up in that relationship. If you get that much out of dating him, hey Ethan, look over here. Gender doesn't have to be a deal breaker." I'm suddenly realizing how smart this guy is. Even in the last life, he gave her resources when she behaved, but he was never stupid enough to just hand over his inheritance. And this time, the second she confessed to someone else, he dropped her and never looked back. That last comment made me realize something. So the reason Madison resented me in our past life was because I didn't just hand over the entire Harrison family fortune to her. In her mind, I was supposed to offer up my entire inheritance on a silver platter and then become some kept man who lived at her beck and call. I may be arrogant, but I'm not an idiot. Yet Madison acted like it was already hers, and when she couldn't get it, she hated my guts for it. I can't even get my hands on my dad's fortune yet. What makes her think she has a claim to it? The mood in the booth was heavy. Sophie stood up hesitantly. I know the classic tragic backstory for a social climber is a gambling dad, a sick mom, a little sister to support, and a broken heart. But I didn't realize the competition had escalated to include metaphysics. She turned to me with a pout. Ethan, I don't have a tragic background. My parents are healthy, my sister is perfectly fine studying abroad, and I haven't been reborn, so I have no special powers. Do you think I still have a chance with you? Of course. Of course, I told her, patting her shoulder earnestly. In the end, Madison was dragged away by security, still screaming as they hauled her out. Ethan, you know I'm the one you love most. You shouldn't be with anyone else. We were really together in our past life. Once the alliance was confirmed, our families immediately threw us an engagement party. My dad also arranged for me to study abroad to get a degree in finance. Before I left, he held my hand, reluctant to let go. You little punk. Now that you're engaged, you can't just coast through college anymore. You need to take your finance studies seriously. The Harrison family business will be in your hands one day. I decided to test my luck with a huge request. Dad, how about you spot me some seed money? Just a small target to start with. My dad immediately shot back, get lost. See? I can't even get my hands on my dad's money, and she thought she could. The day I left, Derek was a mess. Ethan, what am I going to do without you? I'm going to miss you so much. Don't worry. I've already paid your tuition and left you enough for living expenses. Just don't go around dressed in rags and embarrass me. Ethan, I'm really going to miss you. I swear I'll pay you back after I graduate. And hey, I'll be thinking of you every day. Haha, stop crying. On the day of my flight, the comments, which had been quiet for a while, started flooding in again. Madison is going crazy looking for Ethan. Is she looking for him, or is she looking for her cash cow? Look, you guys. She still remembers his phone number from her past life. She's going to call him. I glanced down at my phone. I was about to move abroad, of course I was going to change my number. The comments continued to update me on Madison's situation. She was waiting anxiously outside my old dorm. She was in a financial hole, and the hospital bills couldn't be put off any longer. After thinking for a long time, she came up with a plan. She would proactively ask me for a loan. Naturally, I would surely use this as an opportunity to ask her out. After all, in her past life, when I found out she couldn't afford tuition, I had generously offered her a black card and asked with a smile, Madison, I can cover your tuition and living expenses, but you have to agree to be my girlfriend. How about it? Madison clenched her fists. This time, if I made the same offer, she would accept without a moment's hesitation. But she waited for days and never saw me. Finally, an impatient Derek told her, stop waiting. The day after Ethan and Sophie got engaged, they left to study abroad. They're not coming back. Her ears rang. In her past life, we weren't engaged, and the idea of me going abroad was absurd. We'd been together for 6 whole years through college and into adulthood. All she had done was confess to Ryan on the first day of her new life. How could things be so different between this life and the last? With trembling hands, Madison pulled out her phone and dialed the number she knew by heart. The moment the call went through, an automated voice cut through her thoughts, we're sorry. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. She stared at the screen. It was the right number, the one burned into her memory for 6 years, now dead. Ryan found her first. He shoved her shoulder like an impatient debt collector. Madison, pay me back. You still owe me that $180 for dinner. His new girlfriend, months early in this life schedule, clung to his arm with a bored glare that said she had already decided Madison was a nuisance. Madison, hollow-eyed, handed over the last of her money, crumpled bills from the bar, the change still warm from her palm. Her phone rang again. For one bright, ridiculous second, she hoped it was me. It was the hospital. The voice on the other end was cold and practiced. Miss Clark, your mother's account is past due. Something inside her finally snapped. If you don't have money, can't you figure it out yourself? She hissed, then flinched at her own voice, at the whiplash of guilt that followed. She hung up and stood very still on the sidewalk until a city bike's gentle beat pulled her back. She unlocked it and pedaled in the direction of a memory. The Harrison mansion sat behind hedges clipped like chess pieces. She knew the trees. She knew the pattern of light on the stone. She knew the weight of the doorknob because she had turned it 1,000 times in the other life. The butler met her at the gate with a gaze that cut through dreams. "This is a private residence," he said, pinching each word into perfect shape. "You can't just enter." "I'm Ethan's girlfriend," she blurted. "I lived here for 2 years, don't you remember me?" He let his eyes drift down her discount cardigan, the overwashed jeans. "Do your homework before you try to latch on to someone," he replied, each syllable a dismissal. "The young master is engaged to Miss Davenport." Security didn't manhandle her. They didn't need to. A single gesture was enough. She stumbled back onto the sidewalk, breathing like she'd run a mile, the past and present lives finally tearing all the way apart inside her. The comments, those frantic, floating captions that had once cheered her on like a live audience, flickered faintly, then thinned to a handful of lines she couldn't bear to read. "Heroine, wake up. The script's different. No one's coming." She turned the bike toward the hospital. What came next wasn't a montage because real work never is. She negotiated a payment plan with a woman who had permanent ink on her fingers and the faintest softness in her eyes. She took a second bar shift and then a third. She learned how to smile with only the top half of her face when every muscle below her eyes ached. She borrowed textbooks and never dog-eared them. She stalked bulletin boards for research assistant gigs and grabbed one that paid in cafeteria vouchers. She stopped answering Ryan's messages, then deleted his number, then, some small miracle, forgot it. She blocked her mother for a week and unblocked her with a boundary she wrote on paper first and read aloud twice so the words would come out steady. The live comments popped back now and then, less like a chorus and more like weather. Some were impatient. Some were cruel. A few were kind. She tried not to look. Meanwhile, 3 time zones and a life away, Sophie and I attended the sort of welcome dinner where the napkins were folded into identical swans and everyone pretended the wine was good because it was old. My finance professors sharpened their questions like knives, my father sharpened his expectations like he was whittling a spear. Sophie thrived in rooms like these, still as glass when needed, bright as crystal when useful, steel under velvet always. Every so often my phone would buzz with a stray caption. Madison at the bar, tray balanced, eyes scanning the floor. Madison in a waiting room, lips pressed tight around a styrofoam cup. Madison at a night market buying vegetables one by one because bundles cost extra. For a while, I turned the captions off. Then I turned them back on. Growing up is ugly work, it felt indecent to watch. It felt worse not to. Years, inconvenient and stubborn, passed. When the Harrison Foundation announced a campus entrepreneurship challenge for students from low-income backgrounds, our comms team flooded Northwood with glossy posters. I returned for the final showcase because the board liked the family photo, prodigal heir in a suit that fit, fiancé in a dress that made donors say the word poised. We shook hands, signed checks, did the choreography. Madison arrived late, breathless in a jacket that wasn't cut right for her shoulders, holding a prototype no one had asked her to build. She queued at the end with the also-rans, notes folded into neat packets, hair scissored bluntly at home. When it was her turn she didn't mention her mother or the bills or death or rebirth. She talked about a scheduling platform that matched student workers with microshifts on and near campus, 15 minutes to run a delivery between classes, 40 to monitor a lab, 25 to transcribe a professor's audio note into something humane. She had charts. She had failure baked into the timeline like good engineers do. She had a version that worked on ancient phones. She looked up twice, once at the clock and once at the exit, and then she finished exactly on time. The comments, which had once written her a fairy tale, did something better, they shut up. The judges murmured in that crisp, flattering way that means the check is already half-written. I read her financials and recognized my own old arrogance inverted and cleaned. She wasn't asking for a savior, she was inviting a partner on strict terms. Ryan came late and loud, like a ghost who hadn't gotten the memo he was dead. Madison, he barked from the back row, half lunge, half plea. His new girlfriend, 2 models upgrade from the last, rolled her eyes like a slot machine. Security, well trained by 1,000 donor dinners, redirected him gently toward the door. He didn't fight. He was never a fighter, he was a tantrum that burned out in public. Sophie touched my wrist with one elegant finger, a question without a word. She's good, I said, and Sophie's mouth curved in a way that meant she agreed and in a different way that meant she'd always known what good looked like without needing me to say it. We awarded 3 grants that day. Madison's was one of them. On stage, she held the oversized check like it was a piece of stagecraft, which it was, and she smiled for the cameras and did not look at me. After, she found me anyway. It happens. There are hallways. There are doors that open onto air. There are moments when a crowd thins and the quiet feels like a separate room. Mr. Harrison, she said, formal because the world had finally taught her the shape of respect and who owned it. She offered a plain white envelope. This is for you. Inside, a cashier's check for $180 plus ridiculous interest calculated on a legal pad, compounded monthly from the day of the restaurant. Tucked behind it, a second check for $100,000 with, for the debt the other me can't repay, in the memo line and a line through the amount so deep it tore the paper. That one's a joke, she said. I figured I'd hand it over and you could tell me to get lost and we'd both feel better. I never paid your mother's bill, I said. You did in the other life, she answered, I steady now. This is for me. For that girl. For the way it felt to ask. I need it gone. I put the envelope back between us with 2 fingers. Keep the interest. Put it into the platform. Scale your matching algorithm so it stops overserving students who can sprint and underserving students who can't. I watched her blink, 3 quick blinks, the body processing a pivot, and added, send my office your revised cap table if you take outside money. Don't glamour your numbers. If they're ugly, we like ugly. Ugly is honest. Her mouth quirked. You sound like a decent person, she said, and then, because she was decent too, thank you for the grant. Thank the foundation, I said automatically, then, softer, thank yourself. We were almost free of the moment when she glanced at my left hand. People do that. Sophie's ring was an emerald conspiracy of good taste. Congratulations, Madison said, and managed to mean it. I inclined my head. There was nothing else to say. Sophie met me on the patio with 2 glasses of water, her version of kindness, exact, anticipatory, practical. You good, she asked. Better than I deserve, I said. She snorted. Try again. Hungry, I said, which was both a deflection and true. She bumped my shoulder with hers and steered me toward the catering like we were magnets with a correct orientation. That night, the comments returned for a curtain call. They crowded the edges of my vision while the city lit itself and went to bed. Our heroine didn't get the prince. She got a business plan, a receipt, a boundary, and a decent pair of shoes. The so-called villain didn't get the heroine. He got a fiancé who would negotiate a merger with a smile and a knife and hold his hand under the table while he pitched a room that wanted to bite. Ryan got a door that closed and no one on the other side of it. Madison finished the semester. The platform rolled out on 3 campuses, then 10. She stopped taking bar shifts. She bought a jacket that fit her shoulders. She went to the hospital and paid a bill that had followed her like a dog that only remembered how to bite. On the way out, she stood in the parking lot for a long time looking at the sky like it had something written on it. Maybe it did. Maybe it didn't. Either way, she walked to the bus stop and didn't look back. A year later, in a city whose streets we both recognized by the way the wind turned corners, she passed a Porsche Cayenne at a crosswalk. She didn't pause. Inside, a chauffeur adjusted the mirror and a woman with a steel spine and a velvet voice scrolled through a calendar colored in 5 careful hues. The man beside her ignored his phone entirely and watched the light change from red to green like the world had finally decided to show him how to wait. The comments, at last, said nothing. They didn't need to.